Testing, Eric, can you hear me? Okay, good.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Temple Buddhist Center's weekly Sunday meditation service. My name is Victor, and I'm honored to be of service this morning. We hope that our service today finds each and every one of you happy and healthy, but also please know that if you are struggling in any way, we hope the Temple Buddhist Center and our service this morning can be a source of refuge for you as we open our hearts to you and to your loved ones. We also welcome all the folks joining us from around the world via our live stream and are very blessed to have them sharing their energy with us here as well as inviting us into their home. So good morning and welcome, everyone. Let's begin our service this morning with some conscious breath work. A conscious breath is where we breathe deeply in through the nose, hold that breath for a few moments, and then release slowly so that the exhale is longer than the inhale. Let's begin. Holding that breath for a moment, feeling the fullness of the lungs, and releasing slowly in a long, slow, metered fashion. And as you release this breath, bringing your awareness and attention to the body, noticing any points that might be tense or contracted, releasing the forehead, unfurrowing the eyebrows, the jaw is easy, the shoulders drop, and the belly softens. And a second conscious breath together. Holding and releasing slowly. And as you release, giving yourself full and complete permission to unplug from that energy of going and doing and striving and efforting, perhaps even all the activity of the morning, preparing the household and the family, driving and arriving to the temple, and just releasing our connection to that energy as together we cultivate the energy of just being. Cultivating that energy that requires nothing of us is a boundless, endless source of essence, vitality. And a third conscious breath together. Releasing. And as you release, allowing into our awareness the present moment. Pema Chodron likes to remind us that we are like the sky. Everything else is just weather. And so the present moment is vast, wide open, clear. And we simply allow room for things to arise and fall, come and go. So here at Temple Buddhist Center, we like to begin our services with a little bit of chanting. Chanting is an integral part of every tradition. Chanting's not about being a singer. It's about having a voice. It is about a deeply devotional expression of what is sacred within you and sharing that with the world. Our chant today is Om Amidewa Ze, Om Amidewa Ze. And this is a chant that in the Buddhist tradition enhances compassion for all beings, including ourselves. And so, with that, we'll take a conscious breath. Together. Om Amidewa Ze. 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 Once more. Om Amidewa Ze. Here at Temple Buddhist Center, we practice Western-style Buddhism. Western Buddhism is a blend of Eastern philosophy and Western psychology. And this new and exciting form of spirituality is dynamic, it's growing, it's changing, it's learning with us as we make new discoveries in science, in psychology, and in physics. All of these things help to inform our human experience and our understanding of that. Western Buddhism is inclusive, it is active, and it focuses on core Buddhist insights, as well as mindfulness, meditation, and their practical applications in our daily lives. Our goal here is not to get everyone to agree on a specific lineage or philosophy or sect of Buddhism, but rather it is on a shared experience of mindfulness, oneness, and love. Whether we are chanting together, sharing from the heart, or spending time in noble silence, we respect that you will participate at a level that is comfortable for you. We take refuge in the three jewels and honor and acknowledge these core values as expressions of the awakened mind, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We value awareness of our Buddha nature, as well as the Buddha nature of all beings, bringing a fresh new perspective to each and every encounter. Also, the second jewel, the Dharma, the truth teachings that release us from fear and delusion and help us to realize the true nature of who we are. And finally, our Sangha, our spiritual community, an essential part of growth where we practice the teachings together and support each other along every step of the path. And as a reminder, there are cushions up front, there are also throat lozenges, there are tissues, there are hearing devices at the altar at the back of the meditation hall. So let's take a moment to silence any cell phones or electronic devices. If you're at home, anything you need to do to prepare your environment for a time in contemplation and meditation. We will begin with the prayer of refuge. We will recite this 3 times for the 3 jewels. Conscious breath. Together. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, We go for refuge until fully awakened through the power of generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, and wisdom. For the sake of all beings, may we realize and demonstrate our innate goodness. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until fully awakened through the power of generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, and wisdom. For the sake of all beings, may we realize and demonstrate our innate goodness. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until fully awakened through the power of generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, and wisdom. For the sake of all beings, may we realize and demonstrate our innate goodness. And so as we enter a time of meditation, if you have an extensive practice, then we invite you to practice in a way that is fitting for you this morning. If you are new to meditation, we're going to begin with a dedication of intention. We will awaken the bell 3 times for the 3 jewels, and we will then spend approximately 12 to 15 minutes in silent meditation, connecting with each other in consciousness. There will be a brief guided meditation to assist you in moving into the stillness. And then at the end, we will sound the return bell, and then it will be time for today's Dharma talk or teaching. And so with that, a conscious breath. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness, transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow, and realize the true nature of who they are.
And so we listen to the sound of the bell as it recedes into the silence from whence it came. Taking our awareness all the way into the silence. Becoming aware of each sound, each tone, and noticing how it arises and recedes. It comes from the silence and it returns to the silence. And now I invite you to pay attention to your breath, following the rising and the falling of the breath. Coming from nowhere and going nowhere. Rising, falling, breathing in, breathing out. Noticing the rhythm, the movement of the breath, and noticing the space between in and out, between out and in. So we become aware not only of the breath, but the space between breaths. And as we notice the sound, of the musical tones, we also notice the space between each note. Breathing, hearing, being aware of each, and being aware of the background, silence, emptiness from which each arises. And then I invite you to pay attention to your thoughts momentarily. And notice the space between the thoughts, like the breath, like the musical notes. They come from emptiness, and they return to emptiness. Foreground and background. We notice both. So we rest in the experience of listening to the breath, listening to thoughts, listening to sounds, and also listening to the silence that makes it all possible. Noticing how it's all held in the silence, in the emptiness. As you continue to pay attention to the breath, to hearing, to thinking, if you haven't already, I invite you to become aware of the sensations in your body, feeling the body sitting in the chair or on the cushion, noticing how the body feels. Sensing the arms and the legs. Becoming aware of the facial muscles. And in a moment, I'm going to have you open your eyes as you hear the sound of the bell, and include seeing in your experience. And notice as you open your eyes, where does the image come from? Just notice your experience of seeing rise and fall each time you blink, each time you open or close your eyes. Noticing each sensation, each experience rises, falls, comes from the emptiness and returns to the emptiness. So now, the sound of the bell. Thank you, Victor. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Nice to see the visual field that we call you, that we call ourselves, whatever we are. Happy October. We can feel a crispness in the air each time, each week. It seems like it's a little cooler. So the seasons change, as does everything. So I want to tell you a little story right now about an astronomer, Dr. Bob Williams. In 1996, he was working with the Hubble telescope, which was fairly new back then. And Dr. Williams had been very curious for years about a particular patch of sky that appeared to be empty, void of any stars. If you were to see a picture of that sky, you'd see stars everywhere, but it looks like somebody kind of stuck their thumb in there and covered them up. He was very curious about what he might find if he looked in that space. So he took the Hubble telescope and held it in that empty space for 100 hours. It's a long time. And it was rather controversial at the time because, as you might guess, there's a lot of scientists wanting to have time on the Hubble. It's very much in demand and very expensive. And so he was criticized for taking, 4 days of time to look at empty space, look at nothing. And so he went out on a limb, and after those 4 days, they developed the pictures that were taken. And many of you have seen them, I'm sure. They're now kind of somewhat iconic. But he was able to look into deep space, further away and farther back in time than ever before. Now, just to give you a little comparison here, light travels at the speed of 186,000 miles in 1 second. Okay, that's like 7 times around the Earth. That's about, in 1 hour, light will travel 6 trillion miles. It's a long way to walk. 6 trillion miles, that's 1 hour. Now, the light from the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, takes 4 years to reach our planet. So you can calculate how far that is. 186,000, or 6 trillion if you want to start there, times 24, times 365, times 4 years. Dr. Bob Williams was able to look at light that had taken 10 billion years to reach the Earth. So he was actually looking back in time 10 billion years, almost to the beginning of the universe itself. And so they were able to see the nature of the stars, the galaxies, as they were long, long ago, long before the Earth existed, long before the sun existed, long before our galaxy even existed. So it's quite phenomenal, and he won quite a bit of acclaim through that, but he also took a chance on being humiliated professionally if he had seen nothing at all, you say. So I'm here not to talk about astronomy, but to talk about inner space and the importance of looking at what appears to be emptiness in our life. What happens when we take the time to focus on that inner emptiness that we all experience from time to time, but most of the time we gloss over it very quickly. We fill it up with something, is it? Busyness of some sort. If we're willing to stay, it's not necessarily 100 hours, but even half an hour or an hour, if we're able to focus our attention on that empty space in our life, it's quite amazing what we'll see. We'll see back, perhaps, not only into the beginning of time, but we may see back before time. Maybe able to see back to that place where time is created. Now we are actually creating time, moment by moment. I believe the soul's deepest desire is to find that place, to be discovered. And I think the poet Rumi would agree with me. And I found this particular poem. He says, essence, which is the realness of what is, what we are. Essence is emptiness. Essence is emptiness. Everything else is accidental. Emptiness brings peace. Emptiness brings peace to loving. Everything else, dis-ease. In this world of trickery, emptiness is what your soul wants most. In this world of trickery, Emptiness is what your soul wants most. Emptiness is what our soul wants most. It's what our mind wants least. It's what our mind is most afraid of. That's the great paradox, is what our soul desires the most, our mind abhors. And so it's very challenging to many of us to spend a little time in the silence. I remember coming back from IMS, a retreat center in Barre, Massachusetts, and I was coming back on a shuttle bus, and a young man dressed up in a suit, a coat and tie, and had a briefcase and everything. He was going to the airport on the road to success, I'm sure. And he was just making conversation with me, and he said, what have you been doing? And I told him, we just finished a 10-day retreat. What do you do on those retreats? Nothing. Well, for 10 days, you don't do anything? You must do something. No, basically, we just sit and breathe. He looked at me strangely, and he says, well, you can talk to each other, can't you? No. You can't talk. No, we're in the silence for 10 days. He kind of jumped, you know. And he says, but you can use technology, can't you? I says, no technology for 10 days. Then he almost leaped up off his chair, and he turned white, and he says, no technology for 10 days? I could see him almost shake. And he says, I can't imagine that. He says, I can't imagine. He says, I can't imagine going 10 hours. You say. And that's the way so many of us live. That's the way our life goes in this world of trickery. Our soul most wants emptiness, but our mind is comfortable with that trickery because it's afraid of the emptiness. So it takes some courage to stay with the emptiness, and if we are willing to do so, we can begin to see what's real. That's a great paradox. By seeing what appears to be empty and nothing, we begin to see what's real. And the mind, the ego, the old self, begins to die. And of course, it doesn't want to die. Like everything else, more than anything else, it wants to survive. But it's not real, so how can something that's not real die? The answer is when you see through it, when you are disillusioned. If we're disillusioned, if an illusion dies, then what's left? Reality. But disillusionment is very difficult for us. We don't like disappointment, disenchantment, disillusionment. We don't like to be dissed in any way. You see, we want to be seen as we think we should be seen and heard and so forth. So when we look through that, it can be difficult, and we see the mind reacting, and it makes sense. The mind will be filled with anger or fear or whatever. But ultimately, the mind is filled with a story. A story about guess whom? Moi, of course. My story. Who I am. This is me, this is my life, this is the world, this is the way it is. And so we're very identified with that story. And to let go of that story is frightening. But to let go of that story is to find the emptiness that holds, that reveals the essence, the truth of who we are, what we are. So it's a process of disillusionment, disidentification. So to the mind, to the ego, it feels like not being, feels like not existing. Sometimes when I meditate or when I take people into a meditation of kind of an empty space, letting go of everything and just entering into the emptiness, what they'll report to me is that at first it feels very peaceful, expansive, relaxed. But then after a while, it gets rather frightening. There's no edges. Who am I? If I can't define myself by my edges, if I can't define myself by something outside of myself, who am I? You see? The mind is kind of like a room. So we're sitting in a room. Is the room real? Well, yeah, I guess it is, right? Because we're sitting in it. Must be. But what is a room? You've only got a room if you've got edges, right? The room is defined by the edges. But what's real about the room? The only thing real about this room is the space inside of it. That's the only place we can live, is in the empty space. But that empty space is defined by the walls. And we're kind of the same way. We define ourselves by the walls, by the pictures on the wall. And when those get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, it gets a little anxiety producing, because there's no walls, there's nothing to hold on to. So what I'd like to do at this time is to give you 5 practices that you could use. And these are on a piece of paper on the front desk, and you please don't take the paper, but you can take a picture with your camera if you want to. Here's one particular practice that I like. Is number 1, to watch your thoughts. And once you're able to watch your thoughts, then begin to focus on the space between the thoughts. So you're noticing not just the thoughts, but the space in between. What's there? It's like that empty space that Dr. Bob looked at. We don't know what's there till we look at it. Because most of the time we cram the stars together to the point where it's just bright light. Shuts out everything. Shuts out all the darkness and the emptiness. So looking at the space between thoughts can be a very powerful practice. There's a practice that's sometimes called non-meditation. This is number 2. And this is simply not meditating, just sitting for maybe half an hour or an hour. You see, because a lot of times meditation can be seen as a doing. What are you doing? I'm meditating. I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. So we got a nice confined space here. I can go in and I can go out. There's a me sitting in this space of meditation. But what's it like just to sit and do nothing? Don't meditate. Don't try to do anything. Don't look for anything. Just sit. How long? Maybe you don't know how long you're going to sit. What's that like? Well, I got to know how long I'm going to sit. I got to set a timer. Say, I've got to set a boundary. I've got to define something. And that, again, that's not bad. That's the way we function in the world, is by creating squares. Countries, states, people, whatever. It's the way we define ourselves and relate to each other. However, all of that is simply an overlay from the mind. There's no reality to it, whatever. And when those walls, those boundaries begin to disappear, it may feel good at first, then it can get real scary. If we're willing to stay through that fear, then something big happens, something real big happens. So practicing non-meditation for an indeterminate amount of time, do it nowhere. And practice number 3, in your everyday life, just look for the empty spaces. When you're waiting for something to begin, when you're waiting for something to happen, you're at the dentist office, you're waiting for in line at the grocery store, you're at a stoplight. You know, we spend a lot of our time waiting, and most of that waiting time we're looking at our phone or we're telling stories to keep ourselves entertained. What would it be like just to be in that space and do nothing? Beginning to cultivate the spaces in your life. Another practice, you might consider doing a Hubble meditation retreat. That's something maybe we can talk about, Victor. What's a Hubble meditation retreat? It's a 100-hour retreat where you're invited to look at the space. You're invited to look into that deep nothingness where you don't do anything. You don't have to respond to anything. You're not accountable for anything. You show up and you shine that telescope, not outward, but inward, for 100 hours. You'll go back much further than 10 billion years. Brumet. That picture that Victor shows, the old picture of you, you know, that's the beginning of it right there. But even the star, you know, that old picture of who you are, even that's relatively young. You're older than that. You're older than the stars. And number 5, and this is an interesting one, and it helps if you have a partner. But if you can sit down with a partner, and the object is just to explore your own experience, not to really come up with any particular answers, but explore your experience as someone asks you a repeating question. And they would look at someone and they would say, Chris, how do you resist the experience of emptiness? And Chris would say, whatever comes to mind. Thank you. How do you resist the experience of emptiness? Thank you. How do you resist? So the mind begins to look at all the ways that we run away from emptiness. So that's one of the ways to enter into emptiness, is to see all the ways that we avoid it. Because what happens is those escape hatches become unconscious. So we do it automatically. So sometimes the first thing to do to find the emptiness is to see how we run away from it, to see how I'm avoiding that emptiness. And once we see how we're avoiding it, then we begin to move into it more naturally, more quickly. So I'd like to finish with this particular quote from Blaise Pascal, French philosopher. He says, all of men's problems derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone for half an hour. You know, what would it be like if everybody on earth could just sit still for 30 minutes? It would change everything, you say. But the fact that we're running away from that stillness is what creates not only conflicts between us and among us, but between conflicts between nations and the whole world. So the mess that we see, the world of trickery that Rumi talked about, just turn on your television, not for too long, but just take a look at it, then turn it off and just listen to the silence. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you for practicing the Dharma. enjoyed sharing with you today.
Thank you so much, Robert. So let's take a moment to simply embody the teachings. The mind wants to remember, to grasp, to analyze, to understand. And sometimes it can be just as important to simply feel the teachings. Feel them in your heart. And as we shift into loving kindness practice, it's not uncommon to stretch or to shift your posture or to take a conscious breath, whatever you need to do to help signify this transition into the heart practice. A heart practice is not an intellectual thing. It's not a conceptual thing. Heart practice is simply an opening of our hearts to the world. And the only aspect of it that could be considered maybe intellectual is just forming an image in our mind's eye. So it is using the imagination in a loving and compassionate way. And so with that, let's take a conscious breath together. And as you release that breath, I invite you now to bring to mind the image of you. A full body image of the form that has been given your name and that has accrued the many experiences over the years. Holding this image in your mind's eye, recite silently to yourself these words of metta practice. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe from inner and outer dangers. May I be well in body and mind. And may I be at ease and happy. Conscious breath. As you release that sentiment into the universe, I invite you now to bring to mind the image of a friend of yours. Holding this image of your friend in your mind's eye, let us open our hearts as we send metta. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer dangers. May you be well in body and mind. And may you be at ease and happy. Conscious breath. And as you release that sentiment into the universe, I invite you now to bring to mind the image of a difficult person in your life, a challenging person. Could be a boss, a co-worker, perhaps a neighbor, classmate, or even a political figure. And holding this image in your mind's eye, let us open our hearts as we send metta. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer dangers. May you be well in body and mind. And may you be at ease and happy. conscious breath. And as you release that sentiment into the universe, I invite you now to bring to mind the image of the world. All the plants and the flowers and the trees, all the animals of the land, the sea, the sky, and all sentient beings, including ourselves. Holding this image in your mind's eye, let us open our hearts as we send metta to us all. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be safe from inner and outer dangers. May we be well in body and mind. And may we be at ease and happy. Conscious breath. And in the true spirit of Dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, temple services here are given freely. In the same way, if you choose to give, please give with a generous heart, which means not in return for anything that you have received today. Rather, for those who may be seeking refuge, that they find it here in this temple with these teachings, with these teachers, and with this Sangha. The Dana boxes are located at the back of the meditation hall, and we take a moment of gratitude now, letting our hearts fill with love and light. Gratitude for this opportunity to come together today. Gratitude for our ambassadors, those folks who've committed themselves to regular monthly electronic giving. If you'd like to become an ambassador, simply stop by our website and click on the Love Offering button. Gratitude for all of our amazing volunteers who work tirelessly each and every day to help Temple Buddhist Center bring more opportunities for enrichment, workshops, classes, new teachers, new teachings. And so also gratitude for Jordan. Thank you, Jordan, for your beautiful music today. Thank you so much. And gratitude for Mr. Robert Brumet. Thank you, Robert, for your teachings and everything that you do for Temple Buddhist Center and all of its Sangha members, both near and far. And gratitude to each and every one of you for sharing your heart and your presence and your practice with us here at Temple Buddhist Center. We certainly are the better for it. And so, as we prepare now for the Bodhicitta dedication, I will put that on the board in just a moment. Getting to all of our loved ones up in the heavenly abodes. Together, we'll say the Bodhicitta together. It's on the screen behind me. Together? May the pure, brilliant sun of Bodhicitta dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are illumined and awakened. And with our hands together in front of our hearts, as we go forth now from this place, may we enter each moment in innocence, guided by the wisdom of our hearts. And as we open our hands, open our eyes, shine our light into the world. Namaste. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have just one more moment or two, I have a few announcements. Again, thank you so much to Carrie for bringing crumble cookies to Temple Buddhist Center so that we might enjoy some fellowship. There's coffee and cookies downstairs in Unity Hall. Also, there is our post-service discussion group, which meets at 10:15, just right outside the meditation hall doors to your left. but it also meets online. And I think, Eric, there's a QR code that they can shoot with their phones or take a picture of, and they can go to the Zoom room via that. Also, don't forget, today is the day. Special guest teacher. He is an Insight Timer, one of the most popular Insight Timer speakers, is going to be joining us here at Temple Buddhist Center today. So he will be here from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock right here in this room. So it gives you an opportunity to maybe do some coffee and cookies or get some lunch or do the post-service discussion group, and then come back and meet Hugh Byrne, who's going to be talking about how we can incorporate so many aspects of our practice into all the different things going on in the world right now. Everything from activism to environmental and war, all these different things. How do we incorporate these into our practice? There is a save the date for the Rise for Peace. Matt, are you in here, Matt? Oh, there you are, good. Matt is trying to put together a group to go. Can you tell us just a little bit more about this, Matt?
Yeah, the Center for Conflict Resolution is it's like a local nonprofit that provides sort of restorative justice and mediation services for different individuals and organizations. It's a really great, cool group.
Yeah.
And they're hosting a free breakfast. So, right here in the plaza on Grand Street on October 20th, and I'm kind of hosting a table. So, if it sounds like something you all are interested in and would like to learn more about, it's a super awesome organization that kind of shares a lot of kind of similar kind of Buddhist values, and it's about employing them into some of the systems in our community and stuff like that. So, I've got a little sign up sheet out there.
Great.
If anyone's interested in learning more about it.
Thank you. As I was reading more about it, it's really an amazing organization, the Center for Conflict Resolution, and they're doing really cool things with youth and also adults in the community. So please stop by as you leave, and Matt will be at the table to answer questions there. Our Temple Buddhist Center quarterly day-long retreat is coming up very soon. Registration is now available online. Stop by either our Facebook page or our website. Our day-long retreat featuring Jenny Han and myself. The title is Fear Masquerading as Wisdom, just in time for Halloween, right? So be sure and check that out. We hope you can make it and join us for this deeper dive into your practice. And then also, our very own Beth Sarver always features Interplay. Every Sunday from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, it's a chance for adults to explore spontaneity, to reestablish a connection with that joy of just having fun in a safe and structured environment with other practitioners through everything from improvisation to just movement. It's a great opportunity to basically play and find out and reestablish that connection with play. And with all that being said, here's the little thing that Robert was talking about that I put up there every now and then. And so I'm going to go ahead and put up this screen and leave it there so you can take a picture. Don't forget the 5 practices is on the counter out front, along with sign-ups for the newsletter and volunteering at TBC. Remember to not take the sheet, but please take a picture of it with your phone. That way we save on paper and recycled goods, and you can still take that with you. All right, thank you everyone so much. As you go into your day, peace and blessings.
And.
Oh, and go Chiefs. Thanks for reminding me, Robert.